What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Experience More podcast. Pumped and excited to have each and every one of you guys joining us in this week's episode. This is the podcast for the individuals who want to live life to the fullest, to get out there and experience more of the outdoors with those they love to experience it with. Not just the outdoors, but all facets of life. And that's really what this episode is going to be really driving home. This past week, I traveled up to Wisconsin and went to my brother's grand opening for wedding venue. And I'm going to get into some of the details and everything on that. But with that trip, it's from St. Louis, Missouri here up to Menominee, Wisconsin. It's about a 10-hour drive with a 2.5-year-old little girl. And, you got pit stops, different things in there. But driving that distance, a lot of people really don't, like those kind of drives, things of that nature. I honestly, personally enjoy it because it gives me time to think, time to reflect, time to be inside of my own head. And of course, even traveling with my wife and daughter, and my daughter does so well. We were blessed, so blessed and fortunate that, she really doesn't know any different. Like trips like that are just something that she, is used to. Our first real trip together was the elk hunt out west when she was 10 months old a couple of years ago. And it's awesome. And to have my wife on a trip like that too, it honestly gives us, time together to be able to talk and kind of, daydream, talk about life and really look at what the future holds, discussing, different things that are going on. And honestly, some, quote unquote harder conversations can be had in that time as well. But it just gives us and really in today's world, today's day and age, and just our jobs and our lifestyle, like we really don't get 9-10 hours just us together. And then especially when Aurora's sleeping, because she'll usually nap a good chunk of that drive where it's just us, right, being able to talk. So it's just a cool piece. But nonetheless, definitely I personally very, very much like those kind of drives because it gives time to reflect and think just about life and ultimately to daydream, right? And think about what is to come, right? What is the next step of life? What is the next evolution? Where are we going? Because I'm not someone to sit still. I'm not someone, as much as I like to R&R, and be able to relax and just chill and slow down a little bit. That's really hunting season, everything for me. But my mind is always going. It's always looking towards the next evolution, the next phase of life, so to speak. And that's really what this episode is all going to be about. And it's a saying that, I started really saying and embodying years ago, but it is nothing changes if nothing changes. And, I've heard other people say it and everything from it. I don't believe I was the creator of that saying, but I had heard it somewhere years ago, and it was just like it was something that clicked with me and really hit home in that phase of my life. And it's just kind of like just this little mantra that I personally have to reflect on, think about, say to myself, and really over and over again just come to a realization for myself, like nothing is going to change if nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And really, the reason I even bring that up into this context of, going to Wisconsin, visiting family, my entire life and what it is today is the combination of consistently changing, consistently evolving, consistently trying to get better and working to be better, and doing things that literally, like, for better lack of better term, like scared the shit out of me. And that's where, it's so easy to fall into a way of life where you become comfortable. I've done it. I've been there. I go in and out, and we have to check ourselves. I have to check myself. You have to check yourself if you're going to want to do anything. And one of the biggest things that I personally fear is settling, right? It's one of the big things that I was, afraid of, honestly, having a kid. Before Tina and I had our daughter was, I had this kind of mindset or this pre-notion is like, man, if I have kids, I don't want to just settle. I don't want to just like have to slow down. I don't want to have to do these things. Now life will evolve and change, and having Aurora brought more perspective to my life than I ever had before and more clarity Everyone tells you kids will always change your life, yada, yada, yada. But until you actually have a kid, you truly will never understand what it means. But that was something that, in the past, like I was very conscious of. I was like, if I have a kid, I'm not going to be able to do X. I'm not going to be able to do these different things, or it's going to hold me back from achieving X, Y, and Z. I was making a bunch of excuses. Lack of a better term, I was making a bunch of excuses. I was looking at it in a very negative sense versus the aspect of, man, what kind of opportunity is this, right? And having my daughter is by far the biggest, greatest blessing in my entire life. And I would not change anything with having her and the life that I ultimately live and the life I have lived, right? Because there is still much life to be lived. But I'm going to go down different rabbit holes here. I just really wanted to hit on this kind of topic or mindset of nothing changes if nothing changes. Because really, if you think about it, it's just the truth. If you think about anything that has ultimately gone on in your life, and I mean, really, truly, think about it. Reflect. You can hit pause right now. Reflect on the things that you have done, the things you are most proud of, the things you have achieved. They have always come with some sort of change, right? If you want to remain the same and keep getting the same thing day in and day out, keep doing the same shit. Keep hanging around the same people. Keep yourself in the same state of mind, right? But nothing will ever change if you don't make some changes, right? And that's really, you think about it, it's the definition of insanity is, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Well, it's not going to happen. You'll continue to do the same bullshit. So reflect on that and understand. I would put money on the fact that any of the times that you've been the most proud, the greatest excitement came through some sort of adversity, some point of fear, or overcoming something you once didn't think you could do, once you didn't think you could achieve. And I talked about this, with my dad. I went up to the cabin and did trail cameras and everything. So I'm going to give you a couple stories here, right? And I hope that it kind of gives a better perspective of this, okay? Number one story I'm going to tell you guys, it's going to be one about, kind of my dad and the journey that he has had with Ace Helicopters from my perspective. He's going to be one of the guests that I'm going to be having on the show here in the future. So we'll be getting his perspective as well. But I figured, give you my perspective as a kid watching this happen. And of course, being able to talk with him. We drove an hour or so up to the cabin from where we were at in Menominee. And then I'm going to give you, kind of a story in my perspective of my brother, right? And then story perspective, of course, myself, what has gotten me where I am, right? Pitfalls, struggles, things that have happened there. And then ultimately kind of looking forward to what is the future of the Experience More podcast, of Overdose Outdoors, of just Jake in general. And I hope this episode can help break you free of, that stagnant mindset of maybe feeling like you're stuck in one place, of maybe you don't think or believe you are capable of more because you are. You're truly capable of truly fucking phenomenal things. And it's just whether or not you give yourself the permission to go do those things, surround yourself by the right individuals, the right mindset, the right, shit you're putting into your brain, and then just executing on what it is you said you're going to do. So story time. And that, for those guys, if you haven't been here before, welcome. Appreciate it. I know I'm just jumping right into this episode and everything, but this podcast is literally truly about experiencing more of the outdoors. That is where I was brought up on, and I want to be impact the outdoor community and industry and create a better industry, telling stories, being able to hear other people's stories, giving nuggets of information. And honestly, all of us can go through and really, really gain something from that kind of campfire talk. So we're gonna go story time with you here. My dad, okay? My dad, and I grew up, it's going to be a story of just kind of family in a general, but I'm a brother of, 3 boys. Myself, the oldest, I got Nick, and then Zach, the youngest one. But we grew up on a farm, central Wisconsin, nothing crazy, right? My dad went to school to be a chiropractor. He went to Logan University down here in St. Louis, Missouri. My grandpa actually helped found that college back in the day in the early times of Logan. And my dad and my uncles, like, it's the entire family field that went into chiropractic. But my dad was the oldest, and was the second oldest. My aunt's the oldest, but she is not a chiropractor. She is an artist, and a great one at that. But my dad, being the oldest brother of the 3 boys, went and did chiropractic. And we had, he had a couple different offices. And of course, I was a young kid growing up on the farm. Well, we had the office, rural Wisconsin, like Emerald, Wisconsin. You can look it up on a map. It is a blip. Like, there is literally a little single pump gas station corner store with a bar, kitty corner to that. And then that's really it. We had to go, even like, I was homeschooled growing up, but literally had to go to another school to be able to play some football up to 8th grade and all that different stuff. But my dad bought this old barn, and, we literally grew up in that. And as kids, never knew any of the wiser, but there's a part, they had one little farmhouse, and they bought the other farmhouse across the road, sold the other one. And in that one was this, old rundown, not a single level board inside of this house. And we literally lived in the basement of that house. And there was a point at time where, like, our bathroom was a 5-gallon fucking bucket. Pipes would freeze in the middle of winter. And that was the life, that we ultimately lived growing up. And thinking about it, it's like, I'm going to have my mom on here as well to kind of grab her perspective of just growing up on the farm and everything. Because there's too many stories that I can't hit all of them. And I think getting other people's perspectives would be much more valuable and entertaining for all of you. But here nor there. Had this farm. With that, Dad would go to the office and, in and out the office throughout the day, and then, bought a little bit of land here, and then also would literally farm. We farmed corn and soybeans. We had a couple beef cattle. We had chickens. We had pigs. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was, but she worked in the cities at times. But overall, she raised us boys. And my dad is very much similar to my grandfather, an entrepreneur of sorts. Is like, you can never have too many notches in your belt. Like, you can always have different skills. You don't just, and this is like the teachings that I was taught growing up. Like, you don't just go pay someone to do what it is you can learn to do, because if you go through and do it, even if you mess it up, you're learning through that, and now you have a skill that no one can take away from you. It's really a big proponent of who I am today and what I am capable of. But had that farm, so Dad would go to the office, be chiropractic throughout the day, and then we'd farm. And later on found out that Dad ran the farm with no crop insurance, and it was make or break in a lot of the years moving forward with that. Built the farm out, and you just pray that it was gonna have sunshine certain days and it was gonna rain others. And it was always just working hard to get what you have, right? Like, earn everything. There was never a stone unturned, and it was always about having another notch in your belt, and then surrounding yourself by good people, building a great community to where if you didn't know how to do something, you did have someone who did know how to do that, and you were always someone who was trustworthy. You were always someone who was true to your word. You were always someone who was there to lend a helping hand and be a good neighbor. And growing up in that way of life just taught me a lot about just going out and making the life you want to live. And of course, later in years now, I can really see where all just the lessons of life, and it wasn't just always sunshine and rainbows. Like, growing up on a farm is not easy in any way, shape, or form. Our house was literally heated with wood. We had a couple wood stoves inside of the house, and then an addition of the house that we added on with the Olson family. I came down, did construction. We built out that entire house. I remember stepping on a nail and just having, like, it just bumps, bruises, cuts, all sorts of different things throughout that life. But, made you tougher, rubbed some dirt in it, and we keep moving forward. But that house was all in-floor heat heated with a wood boiler that was about 150, 200 yards from the house up in the barn. And we would stock that entire barn with wood throughout the winter time or through the summer, and then make sure we could keep the house heated so we didn't have pipes freeze or anything like that through the winter. And if you've been in Wisconsin, you know how cold some of those winters can be. So you make sure that fire never fucking goes out. And that was really the job growing up. Like, you don't let it go out. You just keep it burning. But, you know, it's just kind of a little piece of the pie there. But Dad would go do chiropractic, right? And he worked with a lot of farmers, and he was the guy who took care of a lot of those different individuals in the offices he had around the rural community, and you know, built a really, really good reputation in the community of, you know, Dr. Don, taking care of people, helping them, you know, setting them straight. And then he also farmed, right? He wasn't just a doctor. He was someone who was going out there and actually very, very good with his hands and doing the farming. And it was probably when I was, you know, 10, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, randomly. And this is where it is like, okay, you went to school to be a chiropractor, right? But then it's like, hey, we can do other things. So let's farm. Let's build out this dream or this goal we have, this land, right? Go in and manage the land, be stewards of the land, like, you know, be able to provide for the family and do all these things. So it's like, okay, did that. But then there's always other ventures. There's always other things to be able to do, to excel, to get better at. And, you know, from there, Dad, we, at one point in time, we ended up, you know, my grandpa had bought land where we had the Elk Rock Ranch up in northern Wisconsin. And that went to of course, the three brothers. And there was one day where Dad went through and decided, like, hey, you know what? We're going to sell all of our beef cattle and we're going to switch to elk, because he, of course, grew up. He went out to college with buddies and elk hunted and always wanted to raise elk. So got interested in it. It's like, well, I wonder if we can raise elk. What would that look like? And then just went for it. Said, yep, we're selling all of our beef cattle and we're going to go raise elk. Through that process, sold the beef, went through, got a herd bull, a couple cows, built that all out. Years later, went through in business partnership with my uncles, and then they went on the 5-year process of creating Elk Rock Ranch up in northern Wisconsin, Exland, Wisconsin. And, you know, that it wasn't a short little thing, but it was another notch in the belt and an evolution of something to come. And really, because of that, gave me experiences, gave my brothers experiences that no other kids we've ever met or known have ever had, right? You learn through that process, and then you have setbacks, things like CWD. We were like one of a handful of ranches that actually survived the whole CWD process. Our scenario, when that all kind of came to light and they were shutting down ranches and all this other stuff around, and they went into business and created Elk Rock Ranch, where all the elk, we went through and high fenced about 1,180 acres, I think is what it was, about 5 square miles of high fence of property we had, where we did different Make-A-Wish hunts. We had different individuals come up there, you know, done hunts with the Jack Link's brothers and everything, because their cabin's right up by our cabin, and really Jack Link's itself is up by our cabin in northern Wisconsin up there as well. And did that. And that's where I learned how to guide, outside of going out and hunting ever since I was 8 years old in Colorado, and guiding different people, working with different people at a very, very young age, and really always being around adults, right? You guys have heard me talk about how, you know, I'm a proponent of, like, bring your kids with you to go do things. There's no reason my dad brought me to go do some of the things we did, other than to just have me along, or make sure, you know, I had to be there, or I was at home or doing something, right? But I always was hanging around adults and individuals who were older than me. I really didn't click well with kids or individuals my age outside of my dad's friends' kids, right? Because we all kind of did the same things. But we had the elk ranch. And then from the elk ranch, you know, that's one phase of life there, going in and building that out. Now we have Elk Rock Ranch. And then, okay, you think, cool, I'm a chiropractor, I'm a farmer, and now we have the Elk Rock Ranch up and going, and we're working that. We're doing SCI shows and all these different things going on, and still, like, didn't just get rid of it, like, still a chiropractor, still doing those things. And then one random day, Dad came home on a flatbed trailer with this little half-built Roadaway helicopter. You can look it up, Roadaway helicopters. They're a little kit chopper. And, you know, it's next thing you know, it's like, Mom's like, what the hell is this thing? She's like, it's a helicopter. It's like, what are you going to do with a helicopter? I'm going to learn how to fly. Like it's that point of like, dad has always had it to where it's like, hey, this is something I'm interested in, not just interested in, but I want to figure out how to do this. And, through that, because he was a guy taking care of other people through the chiropractic piece, one thing led to another. I don't know entirely how he acquired the chopper. I believe it was someone that he, worked with or ultimately was taking care of. Right. And ultimately had owed him some money or things like that. And then, there was some bartering and things that ultimately happened back and forth. And dad came home with a half built Roadaway helicopter. And I remember in our, 100 by 60 foot pole shed where we kept the combine and the tractors, the skid steer, and all the tools for the farm, we started building this chopper. And dad didn't know anything of it. He'd flown in a helicopter, I think like once before that, on my mom and dad's honeymoon in Hawaii. Pretty sure that was really the only time he'd ever flown a chopper before. But we built this chopper and no prior education, no schooling on it, never flown one personally himself. And we built this thing. He literally learned how to do this shit off of the early days of YouTube and reading the instructions of putting the chopper together. I remember him rolling it out of the shop like it was like, you're rolling out a classic car and you're going to start it up for the first time and everything. And he rolled this little 2-seater chopper out onto a pad, which was the base of an old silo. If you guys ever look at like a farm and you have these really tall silos, well, if you remove those, it's just got this circle slab of concrete at the base of it. Well, that was a perfect little helipad. It was out front of our shop and we rolled it out. And I'm sitting there standing next to mom, and mom's got Nick, and mom's just like, this is where your dad dies. Like, I'm assuming that's what she was thinking. Like, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to fire it up and see how it runs, right? Again, no training, nothing. And he just going to figure it out. Gets in this helicopter, starts it up, boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden starts, the rotor starts spinning, just shoo, 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 shoo. Giving it a little bit more throttle, rolling the throttle on a little bit. And if you guys ever ride in a helicopter, you got your foot pedals, which control your tail, right? Then you got your cyclic in the middle, and then you got your collective, right? Cyclic's like right in the middle. That's ultimately the turn or the pitch of the blades, or like the canter of the blade itself, to allow you to be able to turn left or right. Tail pushes left or right. And then you have the collective on your left side, which has throttle, where you roll on throttle with your wrist, and then you can pull collective, which is going to engage power, changes the pitch of the blades to essentially create lift. And goes through and rolls power on, blades are spinning and just chopping away, full power up, and then he pulls collective to essentially lift it off the ground. Little beknownst to him, he had one of those foot pedals pegged, and as soon as it lifted off the ground like an inch, right, because he pulled collective much faster than he probably should have, right, but he pulled collective and it brought him up like a foot so piece off of the ground, and that whole helicopter went and did a full 360 right around, super quick, super like just out of nowhere. And then he just slammed it back down to the ground. The thing hit the pad, and it just mom screaming, and he just set it back down and powered off, got out. He's like, well, you should probably learn how to fly a helicopter. And that point on, like it was that point where dad then went into full mode of like just diving deep into the education, went on. And if you guys are ever looking at, buying a helicopter, let me know, let my family know. We directly connect people into that. That's what ultimately Ace Helicopters is, family business and everything there with Roadaway and everything now. But if you're ever looking at getting your pilot's license, right? A lot of people go to school, spend shitloads of money they don't need to spend to go get their pilot's license. You can go on to kings.com, which is literally, it is an online database where you're able to get your ground schooling for helicopter, fixed wing, any of those different platforms there. And it's literally, depending on what level you want to do, if you're just doing the online test or the online education piece, getting prepped and ready for your written exam, everything is there. You do the entire online training. And that's like, for me, even going for my pilot's license and my helicopter private pilot's license, it's like $250. $250 for this platform. You go through, do the education, all the training modules, the videos, and then from there, like, you go take your written. From that, you're good to go. You're getting written off on that, and then you're just going and flying with your instructor, and you're building hours, right? But Dad went into all this, learning all these things. I know the stuff that I know now because of him, and my brother, my younger brother, who is also now a pilot and a certified flight instructor and has just gone deep in it with Dad and Ace Helicopters up in Wisconsin. But my whole point of talking about this and even bringing it up is he's a chiropractor and a farmer and a helicopter pilot, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. So how many people do you know, maybe it's yourself, you go into school and you're like, I went for marketing, I went for business. Well, that's just what I'm going through and doing. Well, I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z, or I didn't go to school for that, so I can't do it. That's a load of shit. Majority of people I know that are ultra successful didn't go to school. Individuals who make millions of dollars, or I mean, I just found and met new ones, right? The bearded butchers, right? Those guys, I don't think they even finished high school, right? And yet they're building a phenomenal brand, right? My dad went to school to be a chiropractor for damn near 8 years, right? And then reinventing himself with also being a farmer and then a helicopter pilot. And I'll never forget, there was a time where I was riding in my dad's truck, an old pickup truck, single bench cab pickup. And we were coming back, because he always was a proponent to me of doing my own businesses. I had Jake's Baits back in the day where I would catch and sell night crawlers. I would go through and sell sweet corn and do all this stuff at a young age. I'd go to Dad's offices and anything to be able to make a buck. And I'd go to the local junkyard and take 2 or 3 snowmobiles that were at the town cleanup days and take 3 of them and make 1 of them run, right? And it was always doing things to be able to help teach me how to work with my hands, to be able to figure out different scenarios, and then really be able to make money, make an income at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, right? But there is a specific point where, I was getting close to high school and I was riding my dad's truck, and, he's now went to get his pilot's license. He now has, his private pilot's license. And he was working on getting his commercial, because then it's like, okay, this hobby he started of like learning how to fly a chopper. He's like, how do I make money? Well, then we got into the agricultural spraying and doing that later on in life. But when he was still a private pilot, we were driving back in a pickup truck, and I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Because my entire life I was told, Jake, you can do anything you want to do in this life as long as it's chiropractic, right? And that was, God bless my grandfather and bless his heart, rest his soul. That's literally, that was what he knew and how he grew up. And, he just wanted his kids and his grandkids to be successful and be able to have a skill and a tool that literally is, based off of your hands, right? You're able to provide something, and how powerful that alternative health is. And it's just the life that I've ultimately grown up in. But, my dad, we're driving back in that truck, and it was right towards the end, of high school, and I'm in that point where I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I feel like I need to go be a chiropractor, do all this stuff. And, we had that father-son moment where he just like, looked at me. He's like, Jake, you just know that your grandfather means well, right? He means well. He loves you to death. And I know at this point in time, it can be hard and kind of a little bit stressful trying to figure out what it is you want to do with the rest of your life and everything. Just know you got time to figure that out, and I'll support you no matter what it is you go out and do. Just do what you love, right? Chase what you are passionate about, and I will support you throughout all of that. And he followed it up with saying, it's taken me, I can't remember the exact years, but long story short, it was, 25 years we'll use. It's like, it's taken me 25 years to finally figure out what it is I want to do for the rest of my life. And what he meant by that is, and this is years after being a chiropractor, going into farming and everything, he found flying chopper. He found this pilot side of him. And, it was a freeing thing for him to become a helicopter pilot, to go out and do these things as he was working towards that commercial pilot's license to be able to do agriculture spraying, make it pay for itself, do all these different things. But I'll never forget that talk, because that honestly was a sense of relief in my mind of like, one, knowing that I always have someone who ultimately supports me there. And I know not everyone has that. And I hope that you can understand that there are people that want you to win. There are people that want you to go out and be successful. And if you don't have that, just know myself. Like, if you're listening to this, you're truly, truly capable of going out and doing whatever it is the fuck you want to do. You just got to set the foundation and start working towards those things. And even if you start moving towards what it is you feel like you want to do or that you're passionate about, you'll start opening doors. You'll close the ones that don't matter. You'll start opening doors like that give you the opportunities, make you more aware of the opportunities that are fully in front of you. And him saying that is like, it's taken me 25 years. And this is after he's been a chiropractor, right? Like, I'm about to go into college. And the fact that, it took him that long to figure out what it is he wanted to do for the rest of his life is huge. Like, it's ever changing. And just because you went to school for X, Y, and Z doesn't mean that's what you have to do for the rest of your fucking life. It means you're going to be miserable. If you love it, great, right? If you have a job right now that you completely hate and it sucks, okay, cool. It might be like, it's just means the end of like, if it helps you get to where you're going, go there. But understand that you're not stuck. The only one who makes you stuck is you. That's it. And I speak to myself in that just as much as any of you guys. Like, everyone has the opportunity to recreate themselves and to continue moving forward and discover new things, new opportunities, new relationships. But nothing will change if you don't make the change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Okay? If you keep doing the 9-to-5 job, you're going to keep falling into the same rigmarole left and right. If you keep going through and making the poor health decisions and you're sick of being fat, tired, and lazy, right? Guess what? If you keep doing the same habits over and over today that you did yesterday and the day before and the week before and the month before and the year before, you're still going to be fat, tired, and lazy. Like, you have to make that change if it is something you are wishing and aspiring to be. And it is never too late to be the individual you wish to be. And you can imagine it, you can think about it, you can do all those things, but until you go through and start visualizing yourself as that individual and acting as if you are already that individual and saying no to everything that is not what is involved with that individual, you will remain the same. My dad is no different. It's not that he just stepped directly away from chiropractic. He went through, did that, was farming all the way through chiropractic, building the farm up, then started the elk ranch. It was a 5-year process, still chiropractic, still had the farm and doing agricultural corn, soybeans, started going up and working and surrounding himself by the right people and having the conversations to build the ranch out. It was 5 years just to put the fence up, right? Of clearing, like bulldozing stuff down, having conversations, working with different people, figuring out financially how to go through and make it happen. Like, it is not a short-term process. It takes time. But then 5 years later, everyone looks at you, it's like, oh my God, you're so lucky. I can't believe you do this. Reality is, it's taken 5 years to get there, but they're not going to truly believe what it is you're capable of or what you're going to do until you actually do it. So you just got to go. And you have to make that change. That's no different than my dad. My dad is one of the best examples of a true entrepreneur and someone who's living the American dream and continues to push forward. My dad's not a perfect man by any means, right? There are flaws within him. There are flaws within me. There are flaws within everyone, with you. But it's understanding, like, you're not stuck. You're only stuck if you tell yourself you are stuck. And if you keep telling yourself that lie over and over and over again. So that's my dad. My dad has gone on to do that. And now, and this is the thing, and this is the story piece too, where I say in conversation I had with him as we were going up to the cabin and we're talking about Ace helicopters and where it was, when it started with that little Roadaway 2-seater. And he told me, he's like, he remembers walking past a hangar with an R44 sitting in it. An R44, for you guys to understand, like, to buy one new off the lot, I mean, at a base models, maybe 500 grand if you wanted to go through and get like a Raven 2 or something. And I can't quote me on exact numbers, but you're looking at like $1 million plus for that ship. Well, you know, my dad's got 2 of them sitting in his hangar now, as well as a little R22, which is the half size or the 2-seater of the Robinsons. He's got 2 of those in there. And he, you know, we're going through, he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm bought and paid for. Not just loaned out, not just leased out, but like he has those ships bought and paid for. That has taken years. I've been here for 8 years. Dad had one of those back in the day and, you know, paid for, loan, whatever it was. But to where that now was something almost 10 years ago. And now almost 10 years later, he now has 2 of those ships bought and paid for, countless hours, hundreds of thousands of miles put on, hundreds of thousands of hours flown, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But you think about it, 10 years now Dad has sold his chiropractic practice years back, right? We sold the farm years back, and he finally found what it is he truly wanted to do and what he was passionate about within the helicopter piece. And came to a point where he just went all in. Like, this can go through and provide for my family. This will provide for everything I want to be able to do. We sold the farm, we moved to Colfax, and then we, you know, went all in on Ace Helicopters. And then later on, he sold his practices and just went all in on that dream. But it didn't happen right away. It was a slow process of him working as a chiropractor, him having the farm, and all of us working together ultimately as a family in a unit. Like, for many years of when we started the Ace Helicopters and crop dusting, like my brother and I, Nick, we were the 2 kids out there mixing fungicides in the back of the old flatbed trailer in the back of the pickup truck, going through. And, you know, as we're just trying to figure it out, there was one time where I overfilled him, the tank, and it was a hot, humid, muggy day. And, you know, there's all hiccups, but overfilled him and he took off, and all of a sudden he had to, like, maybe 80 yards away from the trailer, had to land it because he couldn't get enough power and lift with his chopper to fly off. He had to land it down in the beans, empty some of the tank. Thank God he understood what was going on. He's a very, very skilled pilot. Had to drain some of the tank and then take off, right? Things you learn. There was a time where we didn't shut off we disconnected the hose from the helicopter and pulled it away before we shut the hose off, and literally sprayed Dad and turned him blue like a Smurf with his Champ fungicide that we're spraying on the corn, you know, because we were kids, right? Figuring this shit out, and, you know, make mistakes, and thank God, you know, it was always making sure everything was totally serious. It was high risk, high reward, very high stakes. And like, you had to be very, very good at what you were doing. And Dad trust my brother and I to go through and do what, you know, we could do to the best of our ability. But mistakes are made. You learn from those and you don't make them again. And now it is what it is. Now he's got those choppers in the hangar. My brother is a certified flight instructor. He's flying. They're doing agriculture spraying. They're doing different contract spraying, air rides, all these different things. And they're now working, buying timed out choppers, doing overhauls and everything on them, building them back up, and allowing other people to get into their first helicopter, right? And helping really bring people into the fold where they once maybe didn't think flying a helicopter was a thing they could do, to where now Zach spends most of the wintertime out in Arizona training people out there how to fly helicopters. And then he has individual students that he trains in Wisconsin as well. And, you know, it's wild to look at all that. And none of that would have happened if he would have just remained the same, looking at just being a chiropractor for the rest of his life. And if it wasn't for opening those other doors and putting those notches in the belt, would have never achieved what he has ultimately achieved today. I would not be the individual I am today if it was not for him, not for Mom, not for the life that I was brought up in. And to be surrounded by that and to see those things firsthand is a very, very powerful piece. And then you go over to my brother, right? You know, my brother, we both, like, I'm a college dropout. My brother's a college dropout. He went to a technical college. I can't remember if he actually finished. Maybe he did, but he went to a technical college. I went to UW Stout, dropped out after like 6 years because I switched my majors so many different times. It was not for me, and I should have never done it. I learned a lot of things through that process, and at the end of the day, hindsight's 20/20. It all works out. But through that process, my brother, you know, I think my brother, we were doing videos. He's a very, very, very well renowned in his space videographer, photographer, and just a phenomenally skilled individual. And I remember us doing like home videos. And Nick was always the gamer and always the guy with the camera. And he would always be shooting stuff. I remember we did like Civil War enactments, and he was filming us while we were shooting muzzleloaders at each other. Like we'd pack these muzzleloaders, which are a single shot rifle where you just put some powder down in the barrel and then you'd put your bullet kind of thing. But instead of a bullet, we'd just do a wad of toilet paper down the end of it. So then when you ignite it and shoot it, it's like a fireball comes at you. And he would do all these videos. And for school, we would do these Civil War reenactment videos. And that's, instead of us writing papers, we would do like video documentaries on this stuff. And we'd get a bunch of our buddies together and do all this and just have a blast doing it. And through that, though, Nick always picked up a camera. Nick was always the guy doing that, always working on edits. When we'd go snowboarding, he was filming the snowboarding videos and doing different things in the early days of YouTube and all that. And now you look at it later, he's always followed his passion. He's always gone through and made pivots and changes to where it's like nothing changes if nothing changes. He's always gotten better. Just because society's telling you to go to school and do X, Y, and Z, it doesn't mean that's the path necessarily needs to be for you. If it's not, chase what it is you want to do and go make it ultimately happen, right? Now, years later, decades later, right, he's got two beautiful little boys and a little girl, and he's got his family and everything. But there was a point in time right out of high school, he went and just decided, what, I'm going to go sail the West Coast with two of my buddies. And they did. They literally right out of high school. And that's a whole nother story. I know on the episode I did with him, telling that story of traveling the West Coast, you can go back and watch that or listen to that episode where he talks about that adventure and journey. But that was him going out and doing his, walkabout in life to just figure out who he is and what he is capable of. And through that, life-threatening trip, right, where there was a point where he was talking to God and he was having those conversations, and he really found what was important to him. And now being back after all of that, has a beautiful family. He built his career in the videography and photography world, providing value to other people. And if it wasn't for chasing his goals and passion, he wouldn't have what he has now, right? Literally this weekend, I just got back, and that's why this episode's coming in a little bit later than others, but came back from Wisconsin for his grand opening on the wedding venue that him and his wife had just opened up. And the coolest part to that is that wedding venue is where they got married. And it wouldn't be a thing today if it wasn't for all the value he had provided in the 5, 10 years, 15 years prior to that, right? Because of the relationships that he built, because of the skills that he had built leading up to that. Ultimately, when the opportunity came about to be able to buy this establishment, they were first picks. And it wasn't, he had talked to them. It came up like 3 years ago, the opportunity to purchase this place, and they just weren't in a financial place to make it happen. But with that, the conversations were always kind of still there, want to be able to do something. They didn't just dream, like they dreamt about it, him and his wife, talked about things, but then they started talking to other people and they started looking at other things. And because of the relationships they'd built, they had an individual who is literally all for them. They're like, well, no, I'll invest with you. I'll make it happen. Let's make it happen. And then I got a call, and I was talking to my brother. He's like, dude, we're buying the venue. And like, they were signing papers in like 2 weeks. It was like, it went from like, nah, probably not going to be a thing. And it was like they had talked about it years later, but because they kept working towards those goals and seeing those things, they surrounded themselves by the right people to where they had an investor and a partner come in on it that allowed them to go through and make it a reality, to where now they have this beautiful venue in the rolling hills of Wisconsin that is just, it is a little slice of heaven. And because of the vision and the skills that Nick has developed over the years and the relationships that he has developed over the years, it's going to be super thriving. I mean, they're already booking weddings out to 2028, and it's pretty wild that they had just their grand opening this weekend, and they already have 28 weddings booked, and I think they have a good chunk of 2027 already booked, booking into 2028. That doesn't just happen overnight, right? That happens like it seems like it happened overnight. People coming out there in that grand opening, we had over 500-600 individuals come out from literally all across the Midwest because of the value Nick and his wife have created over the years, the relationships that they've built, to where I'm seeing people that I haven't seen in 10 years, and then individuals who have moved away and they had to come back just to be able to celebrate this piece with them. And they had other individuals come out and other vendors and all this stuff. And it was such a cool thing to witness and see, and just as a brother to see your brother go out and do that and achieve such an established goal is just a very, very cool thing. I could not be more proud of him and his wife, and thankful for the investors, Marilyn, who had gone in to be a part of that venture with them to set it up. And that just goes the same with my youngest brother, Zach, who followed, along with my dad and got into the helicopter side of it and became, a lot of conversations that happened throughout that process to where, he was just a young kid. Now he's 28 years old and he's a certified flight instructor, and he's shuttling choppers to Alaska and back, and he's going training people. Like, I say all of this for the sole fact to hopefully be able to drive home with each and every one of you guys who are listening that you are truly, truly capable of doing whatever it is the fuck it is you want to do. It's going to take time. It's going to take a hell of a lot longer than you ultimately want it to be able to take, but it's never going to happen if you don't go through and start taking the actions and putting yourself in the frame of mind to work towards those goals that you have. It's no different than me here with the podcast, right? No different like me going through. I had the CrossFit gym. I've always had this drive and goal to be able to create a bigger impact in the outdoor space. I've always, like, at a young kid, like a lot of other kids want to be a police officer, want to go out and be, a firefighter, an astronaut, all these things. Like, at a young age, my goal was always, I wanted to be a professional hunter. I wanted to be a professional outdoorsman. Didn't really know how it was going to ultimately happen, but that's why I went and guided out west, learned those skills, did that stuff. And then coming in, like, I found a passion in the fitness piece and tying those things together, and it led to another thing. But because I still had the passion of the outdoors, and I always wanted to tie the physical fitness and the living a healthier lifestyle and be able to get out there and experience more of the outdoors, more of life, got me in line with First Phorm, to where I've almost been with First Phorm now a decade, and been there going on, it's 8 years, going to be going on 9. And built relationships in the outdoor space. It's where starting First Phorm Outdoors, like, yeah, I could have just had the First Phorm job and just did my role there, but no one told me to start First Phorm Outdoors. Just did it. I saw the gap. I want to be able to help people in that space, and they understand that these are tools to be utilized in the outdoor space. And there's a stronger community here to help people go out and live a healthier, more fit, active lifestyle. And that's really what First Phorm Outdoors is. The Experience More podcast, this is just a way to be able to take my thoughts, that things that I can't do within First Phorm or First Phorm Outdoors specifically in different platforms there. This is just a spot where I can bring all of you together. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are, like where you come from, what you do. I hope that you have the opportunity to go out on your first hunt, to go out on a fishing trip, to go out and climb a mountain, to go out and be the best fucking version of yourself physically possible. Because the second you go through and do that and start working towards being that individual, whether it is physically, financially, mentally, like all of those things across the board, it all helps your family. It all will strengthen your communities. And ultimately, I firmly believe if we want to truly create an impact in the outdoor space, it comes down to each and every one of us as outdoorsmen and women being the best version of ourselves and treating the lands and waters with the greatest respect possible, treating each other, all the other outdoorsmen and women out there, with the greatest respect possible, creating the respect and really driving home for the individuals who are non-hunters. And just being able to go out and tell the stories, go out and create the relationships. And this whole mindset of like the good old days of hunting and all this stuff is dead and gone, or all that's, no, that is a negative mindset that needs to be squashed. All of us are able to go out and be better stewards of the land. All of us are able to be better stewards to each other. And ultimately bringing back the community sense, the old school deer camp, the camp vibe, get people around the campfire and understand that, there's a lot of people out there who will never see the sunrise at the top of a mountain. It's probably one of the most powerful things an individual can do, and realize that there's just such a great, beautiful world out there to be explored. There's a beautiful world out there to be enjoyed and to bring people along to experience. And that's the essence of the Experience More podcast, is to hopefully instill in you listening right now, to go out there and be the best you can be. Whatever it is you want to do, whether it's that you're talking right now, maybe you're a whitetail hunter and you've never gone on an elk hunt. I've heard too many times, oh, that's my dream, my goal to be able to do that. Guess what? You're truly capable of doing it. I'm going on a hunt this coming October with a buddy, Tom, who had never gone hunting before, but asked me, he's like, hey man, I'd love to go on a hunt. I was like, all right, cool. Let's figure it out. Put in for tags, and we ended up drawing in an area I didn't think we were going to ultimately draw, but we drew, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to go out hunting. It's going to be his first trip. We're going to go with my dad. And that's where all of you out there, maybe you haven't gone on that elk hunt. Well, you're never going to do it if you don't at least set a foundational piece, right? Talk to someone who is an elk hunter. Go out and research it. Look it up. Go and get a tag. Look at the state you want to go to. Figure out what state you want to go to. Go through the process. Put in for points. Draw a tag. Do an over-the-counter. And just go do it. And look at, okay, you don't have to just go with a guided outfit. Maybe you could go along with another buddy who's going to come on like this year. I'm going out. We're doing this elk hunt. Guess what? I have another buddy coming who's going to just be like a pack mule, and he's going to do some videography stuff. He's never elk hunted before, but he's coming along solely so he can learn, so he can be a part of the experience, right? And that's an opportunity for all of you guys. You probably have individuals who have gone on an elk hunt. You see someone draw a tag. You have to put yourself out there in the sense of like, hey, I'd love to be able to come along just to be a pack mule, do it. Like, you can't expect, like, they're not going to just give it to you. People aren't going to just give you. You have to be able to go forward and ask for what it is you want. No one is just going to give you that. So if it's that hunt, if it's that fishing trip, if it's that adventure you want to go on, if it's you wanting to be better with your finances, if it's you wanting to be better with your fitness, no matter what it is, you have to go forth and ask for those things. Pray about it. Literally visualize it. Put yourself in the frame of mind that that is who and what you are going to do and achieve. But until you do that, it'll never happen. At the end of the day, you have to make those things happen. Nothing changes if nothing changes. How many years have you said you would love to go elk hunting, but you've never gone through and even looked up what state you're going to do, or you've never put in for different points to go through and draw a tag? How many times have you talked about going out and going on that trip of a lifetime, but you've never set down a budget for it? I can tell you what, go on an elk hunt, over-the-counter hunt out in Colorado, and I just speak on that because it's what I know the best. Like, yeah, it's going to cost you about $1,000 for your tag, right? And it's going to cost you whatever it is in gas. You figure out what state land, public land you're going to go hunt, and it's going to cost you whatever it is for the gear and the things you're going out there. But you go out and do it, you're probably not going to be successful. And that's okay. 100% okay. Because I can think of a lot of other things people go and just waste money away on, waste a couple $1,000s in a year on shit, where it is like, until you go through and start making the conscious decision that that's what you're going to do, year by year, after and after, I've met and talked with numerous individuals that now they're going on that hunt, where it's like, oh, my dad's always wanted to go elk hunting, but it was just never a feasible thing for them to do. And now he's 60 years old, but he's been talking about it ever since he was 30. I'm sorry, but it's ultimately sad. Like, everyone is truly capable of going out and doing those different things. It's just whether or not you give yourself permission to it, lay down an actual set plan, say this is what I'm going to do, and then reverse engineer, there's the goal, the hunt, and then I'm going to break down how much that costs. Cool. Now I start actually putting money aside to save for that. And I'm not going to go buy the boat. I'm not going to go buy the four-wheeler. I'm not going to go spend the stupid money on these different events or things that I'm going to do. That is what I'm working towards. If I can do it with a 10-month-old little girl and my wife on a trip driving out to Colorado, anyone can go through and make this shit happen, especially if you're single. Anyone can make this shit happen. It's just whether or not you make the changes necessary in your own mind, in your own day-to-day actions to actually make it a reality. And that's just the facts. It's the truth of all of it. It's the truth with my dad and everything that he has gone and achieved and where he is at today. It is with both of my brothers. It is with me. It's anyone who has ever been successful. If they have been successful and they lost it all and they came back, like, it's just making the pivots and the changes to get to where it is you want to go. And I know this might sound like lip service, but I truly, truly mean it. If you're listening right now, you are capable of it. You just have to give yourself permission to go out there and get the fuck after it. All right. I love you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you guys chiming into this week. Man, it's a cool one. Like I said, a lot of time to reflect over the travel from Wisconsin and back. And I encourage all of you guys to go out there and reflect on what it is you're doing, where you're at, what it is you want to achieve, and keep moving towards it, because you're in the space, the world, the state. You are alive, and you're truly, truly capable of getting out there and making your dreams come true. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys coming on, being a part of the episode this week. Definitely, if you got some value from it, do me a favor, leave a review. Helps grow the show, getting it out there for more people to be able to go through and see, or to be able to find it, see it, hear it. Share it with a friend. Share it with someone that you believe would be, impacted by it, and maybe help them experience more out of the life that they're living, out of the outdoors that they want to be able to experience. And outside of that, review, share it with a buddy, a friend, a colleague, and definitely, if you have the opportunity, share it different social platforms. Truly appreciate each and every one of those things. Leave a comment. If you have questions, drop it into the YouTube episode of this. You can go over there, even if you're listening to it on Spotify or anything like that. If you go over to YouTube and you have questions, ask them there, because I go back and I'm on all those different comments on the YouTube platform. So definitely appreciate the reviews, the comments, the feedback, the growth, all the things there. And for myself, we got big goals and aspirations going in through 2026 here into 2027. A lot of big, cool things are ultimately going to happen in my personal life as we move into 2027. And I look forward to being able to experience it with each and every one of you guys. With that being said, like I said, love each and every one of you guys. Appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see you next week.